Feel the sun, not the one that warms you for a while, but the deep, penetrating sun of a Mediterranean midday. Its light not only illuminates, but is also a constant caress. Imagine its warmth on your skin, an embrace that doesn't burn, but reminds you of its presence at every moment, in every breathing pore. It penetrates your bones, your soul. The breeze, it arrives with a whisper from the sea, laden with salt, with stories of distant journeys. It glides softly over your body, seeking every nook, every fold. It envelops you with its ephemeral coolness. There are no rigid seams to imprison you, nothing to harshly mark your silhouette, only the touch of fine wool that breathes, or perhaps linen, cool, light as a cloud on the skin, a single piece of fabric, ingeniously draped, transformed into your second skin, not armor, but an extension. It falls, in soft pleats, from the line of your shoulders, follows the curve of your torso, and then it opens, free, unbound. You can feel it move with you. It flows, it is part of you. It doesn't oppose your stride. It doesn't restrict the sway of your hips. Every movement is fluid, effortless. You walk on dirt paths, on sand. The fine dust rises under your sandals, between your toes. Every step is a sway, a natural rhythm. The fabric undulates. It caresses your thighs, allows the air to circulate without the slightest effort. A silent dance between your body and the garment, a symphony of lightness. Think of a craftsman, bending over his work, perhaps a potter spinning the wheel. His arms, his legs, the fabric doesn't bunch, it doesn't pull, it simply yields, flows with the movement, offers constant ventilation. It's the perfect answer to the demanding climate. Or a farmer, under the relentless sun, tilling the earth. Sweat beads on his forehead, but the body breathes. The light fabric prevents heat from accumulating, allows life to take its natural course. Imagine a philosopher sitting in the agora, under the fragmented shade of an ancient olive tree. His legs extended, relaxed, the tunic falling loosely, without any tension, without a seam marking an artificial division. It is an extension of his posture, of his thought, as free as his ideas. It's a way of dressing that connects you directly with your surroundings, with the earth under your feet, with the sky above your head. Every gust of wind is a shiver that runs down your leg. Every sunbeam is felt directly on your skin. The fabric, so light, barely veils. There are no barriers, no interruptions, only a subtle membrane between your body and the vast world. This type of clothing is not an absence of something. It is an affirmation, a conscious choice of how to interact with the world, with the scorching heat, with the very nature of the body. A garment without bothersome seams, without heavy pockets, without zippers that break the harmony, just fabric and body, a pure, intimate relationship, a way of inhabiting the day, as natural as breathing, as undeniable as the sunlight at dawn. And in that simplicity, in that intimate connection with the elements, a philosophy began to be woven, a gesture, not just what they wore, but why and how, that defined a large part of their world.
It was not the absence of something. It was the presence of an idea, a distinct way of understanding the body and its place in the world. Imagine the gesture every morning. Close your eyes. Feel the fresh air in the room. There are no screaming zippers, no buttons that resist. There is a different silence, an older gesture, more intimate. To take a rectangle of fabric, a universe of linen or wool, to feel its texture between your fingers, its living weight, and let it fall over the body. A single movement, an instant when the fabric finds your shoulders, your back, your chest. It does not imprison. It does not define a pre-existing form. It wraps. It flows. It breathes with you. This choice does not stem from carelessness, nor from a lack of technology. It stems from a deep sensory intelligence, a silent and constant conversation with the world around you. In the dense heat of the Mediterranean, your skin needs to breathe. The tunic is not a barrier against the air. It is a filter. It lets the breeze brush against you, the sun warm you without burning you. It is a second skin that moves with you, that ripples with your steps, that dances in stillness. Think about movement, not just the large, obvious gestures. Think about the simple act of sitting on the cold stone of an agora. The fabric conforms, it yields, it isolates you just enough. You feel the coolness of the stone, but muffled. The body dictates the shape of the clothing, not the other way around. It is a disarming simplicity. But do not confuse it with a poverty of means. That is just the surface. Look at the Roman magistrate walking through the forum. His toga is not a piece of fabric. It is a manifesto, a portable architecture. You feel the weight of the wool, pure and white, on your left shoulder. The art of its folds, which are not random. They fall with a studied, almost mathematical gravity. Wrapping the body in a toga was not a quick act. It was a ritual that demanded patience, technique, sometimes even the help of a slave. It was a way of composing your presence in the world before stepping out into it. Every fold, every drape of the fabric was a language without words. The sinus, that great arc of fabric over the chest, not only adorned, it was a pocket, a space. A poorly draped toga could suggest slovenliness, lack of authority, an internal disorder. Your clothing spoke of your character before you even opened your mouth. Clothing was an extension of gesture, a tool for inhabiting space, a direct connection between the skin and the stone of the city. But this gesture is not the same for everyone. The same idea, the same concept of wrapping, tells very different stories. The slave's wool is rough. His tunic is shorter, the color of earth and labor. It is made for sweat, for effort, not for philosophy. It covers, but it does not declare. Its simplicity is that of function, not of philosophy. And the woman at the threshold of her home wears a stola. Its folds speak another language, of modesty, of family, of an interior space. The fabric falls to her feet, cinches under her chest. It is the same grammar of flowing fabric, but with a different syntax. A thread can separate freedom from servitude, a color the power of citizenship, a fold the order of chaos. And beyond the known borders, where the forests are darker and the cold more intense, other bodies exist. Divided, sheathed bodies, legs separated by seams. A strange idea, a way of moving through the world that they do not yet comprehend.
Imagine a world where skin, fabric, the very air that brushes your body, are not just a matter of comfort or protection from the sun or cold. It is something much deeper, an extension of you, a visible whisper that emanates from every fold, a silent declaration that moves with you, that precedes you,
that follows you. Think of the folds of a tunic, of the imposing drape of a toga. They were not mere garments. They were a language, a silent code that everyone learned to read, a language that was read on every street, in every bustling square, in the atrium of every noble house. You moved through the city, and your attire spoke for you, not with words, not with shouts, but with the form itself, with the way the fabric curved or fell, with the quality of the linen, light and ethereal, or with the rustic weight of the simplest wool, with the mastery with which the cloth was draped over your shoulders, creating lines, drawing silhouettes. There, in that carefully chosen piece of fabric, in the very fiber, resided your identity, your precise place in the vast tapestry of society. If you were a Roman citizen, for example, the toga was not an option. It was your public skin, your social armor. You felt its weight, a tangible weight, heavy, voluminous, sometimes uncomfortable in the midday heat, perhaps restricting movement, demanding a certain posture, but inescapable. You could not be who you were meant to be without it. It was your distinctive mark. Its immaculate, unblemished white spoke of purity, of civic duty, or its purple border, vibrant and powerful, in the case of magistrates, was not an aesthetic whim. It was a banner, an instant visual recognition that shouted your freedom, your inalienable rights as a member of the urbs, your duties to the republic, your belonging to the civilization that surrounded you, a living piece of its intricate machinery. You felt the weight of that fabric on your shoulders, but you also felt the immense weight of its meaning, etched into every thread. It was a burden, yes, but it was also a flag. When you wore it, when you moved with it through the forum, people instantly knew who you were, what position you held, what you could do, what you aspired to within that hierarchical world. They knew your name without having heard it, and the contrast with others was as vivid as the midday sun over the capital, as unmistakable as marble and earth. If you were a slave, your clothes, by contrast, were functional, simple to the core, without the pomp, without the art of elaborate folds, without the vast symbolism that the citizen carried on himself like a second body. Your attire did not speak of rights, it spoke of service, not of freedom. It spoke of property, of being at disposal. It was a constant, silent reminder, for yourself every morning as you dressed, and for every person you met on the path, of your position, of the social invisibility that enveloped you, despite being in plain sight of everyone. Your attire was a seal. The tunic, in its crudest simplicity, could be a universal garment. It covered almost everyone, but the toga, in its complexity of fabric and form, in its demand for a specific bearing, was a supreme privilege. A garment that elevated you above the masses, that separated you, creating a tangible border between what you were and what you were not. It was the invisible thread that wove the identity of a nation into each of its free individuals, a fabric border between the one who possessed and the one who was possessed. A distinction that, although today it may seem strange to us in its rigidity, was as real and as tangible as the marble of their temples, as the stones of their roads, as the blood that ran through their veins. It was the way status was written upon the body itself. And beyond those internal borders, of those veils of status woven within the same city, there were others, other peoples, with other garments, with other ways of covering their bodies. While the sun caressed your legs in the polis, a different shadow began to spread beyond the known borders. A different wind blew from afar. It brought with it images that, to you, were alien,
almost incomprehensible. You looked north, towards the east. There, where the forests were denser and the air sharper, lived people who dressed in a different way. The Celts, the Germans, the Persians. Distant peoples with customs that seemed strange to you, even rough. They covered their legs with tight fabrics or sometimes loose and voluminous ones, tied at the waist, descending to the ankle. Those trousers, or braque as they were sometimes called, were a barrier to your gaze, a way to hide what nature had freely given. It wasn't just any garment, it was a uniform, no doubt, but not yours. To your Roman or Greek perception, seeing someone with their legs wrapped like that was to witness the clothing of the other, of the savage. It was the mark of the barbarian, of one who did not know the laws of reason, of the civilization you so proudly represented. Think of the Persians, your ancient enemies. You always imagined them in those leggings, those long tunics, an attire that, to you, screamed foreigner, tyrant. Or the warriors from the north. Their ferocity in combat was linked, in your mind, to their way of dressing, to those coarse garments that covered them completely. It was a deep rejection, one that went beyond fashion. It was a cultural statement. Your body, in your civilization, was meant to move with fluidity, to be displayed with grace. The tunic allowed it. Those trousers, on the other hand, seemed to restrict, sometimes even ridicule, the natural form. They told you, without words, that those who wore them lived in a world where skin did not breathe with the same freedom, a world where perhaps morality, aesthetics, and order itself were different, less elevated. This is not merely a historical curiosity. This view influenced how you related to these peoples. You despised them, in part, for their way of dressing, for that barbarity that manifested in every fold of their breeches. It was a visible frontier, a line drawn not with walls but with fabric, a constant reminder of your perceived superiority. Your civilization was built not only on language, laws, or art, but also on the simple elegance of your attire, because your body, as you conceived it, was not something you needed to hide. It was, in itself, a work of art, an ideal of beauty that your clothes were meant to enhance, not to conceal, a body made, almost designed, to be seen, to be admired.
You stop now before a form. You feel the cold marble under your fingers, polished by centuries, or perhaps the rough surface of an ancient canvas. You meet its gaze, serene, immortal. Here, the human body was not something to hide. It was an ode, a sculpture in motion, a living canvas where perfection could be sculpted, trained, conceived. Think of the gymnasiums, not like our modern buildings, full of machines and mirrors. Imagine an open space under the generous sun where athletes, covered only by oil and dust, competed, their muscles tense, fluid, a dance of strength and grace. There was no shame in this exposure, only the celebration of what they considered divine. Form, balance, symmetry, all of this was a reflection of a higher order, a cosmic harmony manifested in flesh and bone. Art, the sculptures that still take our breath away today, are the clearest proof. Observe a discobolus, captured at the instant of its maximum tension, or a Venus emerging, ethereal and powerful.
They were not merely aesthetic representations. They were manifestos, declarations about what it meant to be human, in its purest and most elevated form. Clothing, then, how could it conceal such a creation? It couldn't, and it shouldn't. Its purpose was different: to drape, to accompany the natural lines of the body, to honor the structure beneath. Every fold of a tunic, every fall of a toga was designed to follow the contour of a leg, the breadth of a shoulder, the curve of the waist. It was like a choreography between fabric and anatomy, a soft caress that accentuated rather than erase, a light curtain that moved with every step, revealing the life beneath without fully baring it. This was not merely a wardrobe choice. It was a philosophy made manifest in fabric, a tangible expression of their respect for the body, for health, for virtue, for beauty in its most fundamental form. To understand this is to begin to feel why the free body, unencumbered, was so essential to them. It was a principle, a truth that guided their decisions, their art, their lives. But even the most deeply rooted truths can find their limit, and there is a point where this ideal of exposed skin and celebrated form began to clash with a very different reality, a reality that came from the north with a very cold wind.
We leave behind the sun that caressed your skin, the warm air that danced over the togas in the forum. Now the path ascends, and the green of the olive trees blurs into a different landscape. The wind begins to whisper differently. It infiltrates. It's not a refreshing breeze, but an icy breath that pierces your tunic. With each league you gain northward, towards the remote frontiers, you feel the harshness of the climate take hold. The sky is no longer a deep blue, but a low gray canvas. You arrive at lands where the forests are dark and deep, where winter is not a kind season, but a silent enemy. The tunic, that venerable garment that defined you, suddenly feels insufficient. Your legs, exposed. Your hands seek refuge under the folds, but the skin on your thighs and calves begins to numb. The cold rises from the frozen earth, clinging to you. It's no longer a matter of dignity or of what should be. It's a pang, a raw necessity. You see the natives, those peoples you once scorned, their legs covered, their *braque, those tight or loose garments that to you were the uniform of the uncivilized. Now, under the falling snow, they don't seem so wrong. The pragmatism of survival makes its way, slow but inexorable. It's not an immediate choice. There is resistance. There's an attempt to cling to the old ideal, to the body that must be seen, to the citizen dressed in the simplicity of fabric. But the reality of a sub-zero night watch, the frozen mud clinging to the skin, the threat of frostbite, forces you. Little by little, the legions begin to adopt. Customs blend. It's a silent process without grand edicts. Simply, the soldiers living and fighting in Germania, in Britannia, in the cold Dacias, discover that to move forward, to fight, to live, they must cover themselves. Trousers, those barbarian garments, cease to be a symbol of the other, and transform into a vital layer of protection. They become another layer on the skin to face the cold that the empire has decided to conquer. It is the wind that teaches you, the cold that forces you to yield, to let go of a part of that ancient way of understanding the body and the world. It is survival, and only it, that redraws the lines of what is acceptable. And in that slow transformation, something is lost, but something is also gained.
A new image of the Roman begins to emerge, more sheltered, more adapted to the rigor of the North. And that silent, almost imperceptible change will resonate through time, altering the silhouette we believed immutable, altering even what we remember.
And now we travel to the space of memory, to that silent place where images of the past reside, a place where time stands still and the shadows of yesterday become present. Close your eyes, or perhaps simply look. Look at those statues, the ones you've seen 1,000 times, in books, in museums, in the corners of your imagination, always in tunics, with perfect draperies that glide like water, with those bodies exposed to the air, to the light, to the cold marble. Feel the imaginary texture of the falling fabric, revealing and concealing. This image, polished by time, by art, and by history itself, has embedded itself in our collective unconscious. It is how the classical world presents itself to us, a figure draped in fabric. Always. Never in trousers. The absence of this garment, which for us is so fundamental, so commonplace, becomes an echo that resonates through the centuries. It is not a shout, it is a distant sigh. It speaks to us of a way of being, of feeling the breeze on the skin, of inhabiting the world with a different freedom in movement. It is not just a historical curiosity, it is a window into a mindset very different from our own, a portal to an understanding of the body, decency, and identity that fades into the distance. Think of the mosaics of Pompeii. Observe each tessera, each captured scene. In the frescoes adorning Roman villas, vibrant with colors that defy time. In the representations of gods, majestic and ethereal. Of heroes, brave and semi-nude. Of everyday citizens, walking through imaginary forums. You see the heavy and dignified toga, the flowing stola, the simple or adorned tunics, bare skin, tense muscles, but never the leg covered as we know it today. This visual silence is immensely powerful. Like an ancient mist, it shapes our imagination. It creates a veil of distinction between them and us, a subtle yet profound abyss. It makes that world seem more distant, more ethereal, more ancient. And it is, because that image, that ideal of form and attire, endured for 1,000 years. Through icy winters and scorching summers, it resisted inhospitable climates where logic would seem to dictate the need for greater warmth. It resisted invasions from peoples with very different garments. It resisted the temptation of a practicality that did not fit with its aesthetic and cultural vision, a practicality that we today take for granted. This persistence, this stubborn adherence to a way of dressing without trousers is its deepest legacy for our modern perception. It whispers to us that the body, aesthetics, identity could be expressed in a way that we can barely conceive today. A different canvas, a way of living where the modern comfort we seek was not the supreme value. And in that silence of their tunics, in the cold stone of their sculptures, we feel the whisper of what vanished. Not just a garment, not just a way of covering oneself, but a way of looking at the world. An intrinsic connection between the body, clothing, and civilization itself. A universe where skin and fabric were a statement, always, a statement of principles, of status, of beauty, a statement that even today, with every statue you behold, continues to vibrate in the air, a presence that time has not been able to erase. And so we are left with this image, this vision that time has bequeathed to us.
From a world that knew not the covered leg, an echo that continues to resonate, slowly, softly,